Activist investor Nelson Peltz has officially sold off his entire stake in Disney. Sources familiar with the matter confirming to Yahoo Finance. Now, this comes nearly 2 months after Disney successfully fended off his proxy battle. We want to bring in Matt Dolgin. He is a Morningstar senior equity analyst. Matt, it's good to talk to you. So let's talk about where this leaves Disney now. They can officially put Peltz now behind the company. I guess, how confident are you from what you've heard from Iger over the last several months that Disney is, in fact, on the right track?
Well, I'm not highly confident, but that's not necessarily an indictment on Iger or Disney. This is a really tough problem that all of the traditional media companies have right now. And we think that they're making some good moves. They're bundling a lot more. We'll see what happens with their streaming strategy, which gets sports, the linear sport, especially ESPN, to some streaming outlets. So they're working, but as far as how confident we are that these will prove successful and will be able to result in a successful evolution from a media world built on linear, traditional television as we know it, to streaming, remains to be seen, and no one's figured it out. So that's a really big challenge, and we weren't sure Peltz had the answer either. So everything is a work in progress still.
Yeah, Matt, was there any ideas put forward by Peltz? There wasn't much details, it didn't seem, in terms of his suggestions, but any ideas just in terms of the direction that you think does make sense for Disney to consider at this point?
As far as suggestions that he had, there was not anything that really stood out to us. He identified several, I guess, missteps in the past, but those are easier to identify in retrospect. He didn't necessarily have solutions. One thing that he pointed out was that he thought that the company should do something with its non-sports entertainment linear network. So ABC, Disney Channel, FX, those types of stations. And we don't think that would have been the right move. They still make up about a third of the company's operating profit. So to get rid of that cash cow, we don't think was the answer, especially since they're probably selling low right now if they were to sell it or to take on a strategic partner. We would guess that linear networks are being priced for the most dire outcome. It may be that most dire outcome is most likely, but still we don't see the benefit of selling right now, especially considering the synergies that you have with streaming, which is where television's future is. We thought a couple of things that we liked that Peltz said, one of which was he wasn't sure that the streaming ESPN solution is the answer. We agree with that. And we're going to see in short order what happens both with Venue, the joint venture with Warner Brothers Discovery, and Disney coming out later this year along with Fox. And then next year, direct-to-consumer ESPN standalone for Disney coming out. Our concern is that it might expedite the decline in traditional television, which Disney still really needs. So we'd prefer to see bundling with linear, like what Disney has done with Charter. We saw actually Charter do that recently with Paramount also. So we think that is probably the best tack to take. But, we'll see. Like I said, there are no answers and no one has figured it out.
Matt, why is bundling key? Just talk to us just about the benefit of that and how significantly you think that could potentially offset some of the declines elsewhere within the business.
Yeah, well, in general, the reason we're such big fans of bundling is because, especially in the streaming environment where consumers can really switch in and out to the services that they want most at the time, in a bundled environment, you're much less likely to do that because it's multiple different platforms that you have access to. And even if maybe some of the Disney streaming services this month or these next few months don't have what you want, maybe some of the other services will. And so instead of going back and forth from one to the other, you might just be a little bit more content to stick with it. The reason we especially like the idea of bundling with the traditional television pay TV packages is because we think it actually ends up being the most cost-effective way to consumers, for consumers, because they would get all of that linear content in addition to many of the different streaming services, which they're paying for anyway. I mean, people really love the idea of a la carte and just get what you want. But the reality is there's a lot of content in a lot of different places, and people at one time or another want essentially all of it or much of it. And so if you can make it most economically sensible for those consumers by giving them the content that's on TV, making it a more streamlined and efficient user experience where you can flip on the TV and go to the program you want instead of having to go to various, to different apps. And then along with the stickiness of customers over time, we think that ends up being, again, not only the best outcome for consumers, but something that could stem the decline in the linear business based on cord cutting, might bring the value a little bit more to those people that so far haven't seen it when it's just essentially live TV and not what's on the streaming platforms.
So, Matt, Disney clearly has to figure out this evolution here of pay TV, but you also bring up succession here in your most recent notes and how that really needs to be on the front burner here for Disney. Where do you think those discussions stand? What would you like to see come about here, obviously, over the next couple of years as we do get ready for this eventual transition here from Bob Iger?
Yeah, well, I can't say where they stand, but it's undoubtable that this is, as you said, on the front burner. Bob Iger is in his mid-70s now. The reality is he's just not going to be there for decades more. So in the past where he'll leave and come back, I think now it's more real that you need the next person to be identified pretty soon. As far as what we'd be looking for, who that is, given what we've been talking about, we really think the most important thing is that it is somebody who can figure out what to do with this evolution of traditional media. The last CEO, in between Iger's stints, was Bob Chapek. He had come from the parks business. We think the company's probably better off with an entertainment-based CEO, certainly someone familiar with Disney. If you have someone with broad leadership experience, that's great. But if you can't get everything in one person, we think the most important thing is it's someone with the entertainment background, which is certainly what Iger had. It's what Michael Eisner had, Disney's CEO before Iger. And we think that's critical to Disney's future. So we'd say that's where the focus probably should be. And we would expect in the next year, we'd be hearing what's going to be going on. Iger, his contract runs up at the end of next year. And although it's always possible that he can renew yet again, like I said, we think it's getting more real. They need to have their successor in place.
All right, Matt Dolgin, we appreciate you joining us here this morning. Morningstar Senior Equity Analyst. Thanks so much.
Thank you.